morning, and welcome to another edition of Tech Tuesday presented by Delta Media Group, where we put the fun in the fundamentals of real estate. Sorry, I'll do better next week. That's just it's not my best. So today we are going to take a look at the Customer Center. Now, we've gone over the Customer Center before, but we keep adding things to it, making it better, continually improving it. So we want to take another look and go over some of the new functionality we've added. So first off, in order to get to the Customer Center, I'm going to go over here to CRM in the side navigation and then click on Customer Center. Now, alternatively, I could type Customer Center up here in the Quick Actions bar, and then it would come up in the autocompleter, and I could get there that way as well. Now, once I'm here, the first thing we have is just the basic structure of this page, as we have it broken down to sections that all relate to interacting with customer accounts in one way or another. Now the one that kind of is borderline there is down here we have a tasks section, or basically a to-dos section, and these may or may not be specifically related, or I should say related to specific customers. You can see it's NA when it's just a kind of a reminder that's not necessarily attached to a customer, but generally it'll be attached to a customer account. And act as a reminder to do something like, a follow-up call or send an email to a customer. It just depends on how you set these up when you do set them up. So we'll scroll back up here to the top. Now what we have added is an Edit Layout button. So what this allows you to do is basically reorder these sections or outright remove these sections depending on how you run your business and whether or not they're relevant to you. So I'm going to click here on Edit Layout. You can see it opens a modal up here, and we have all of our sections laid out. So if I wanted to remove one, so let's say process requests, for example, though generally very important, maybe based on your company settings, new requests from customers are processed automatically, in which case this section wouldn't be relevant to you. So I can just click that toggle, and that turns the section off. Let's say also that I'm not interested in customers with recent activity. I just want to see a full list of all my customers. I could turn off that Hot New Customers section, and then we'll say the thing that is most relevant to me here is the tasks or the to-dos. So I could drag those up to the top, and then those will be the first thing on the page. So you can see how you can very easily turn the sections on and off or change how they appear on the page just by moving them around in this interface. So once I have this set up the way I want, I'll just click on Save, and that would save my new layout. And then keep in mind I could come back in here and change it again later on if I wanted to. So just because I removed some sections doesn't mean that they're gone for good. Now, since we are going to go over all the sections, I am going to close this out and just kind of leave it as the default for now. Now the first section we have here is the process request section, again by default because you could change that. Now the process request section will allow you, basically it'll display any new customer request that's come in. So if if a lead comes into the company website and it gets assigned to you or gets broadcast to you, that'll show up here. Or if a customer came to your website and they asked for a showing on a property or just asked for information on a property, those would show up here as well. And you would have a card that just gives you basic information, and like the customer's name and just the address or the very basics of the property they made a request on, if they did make a request on a property. And there would be a button here that you could click on to go through and actually process that lead. Now we have other videos that go through that in more detail, but just at a high level, processing a request really just means responding to the customer. So the customer asked for information on a property, you would click process here, and then that would give you an interface where you can type out an email response and hit send, and that would mark the request as processed. If the customer provided a phone number, you would have an option to view that phone number, and then the system would assume that you then called that customer and mark it as processed. And if it is a customer that you are already working with, somebody that's already in the system, you have an option of basically telling the system that you contacted them outside of the system. So let's say you already had their phone number, so you just gave them a call, you could mark it as processed, and then the system would just have it marked as processed. Now the next piece we have here is the actions section. So these are a handful of actions that relate to handling customer accounts, or in this case contacting customer accounts is the first one. So we have some videos that go through the larger scale here, features in detail, but we'll just kind of hit each one at a high level. So first we have email customers. So if I click on that, it opens up this email interface. From here I use the to field. I can just click there and start typing, and you can see that it'll start auto-completing with matching customer names or email addresses if I were to type an email address in there. It would do the same thing for groups. So if I type in a group name, You can see that it picks up the matching group names, and I just click on them and it'll add them into this list. So those will be all my 2 recipients, but if I wanted to put people in that carbon copy field or blind carbon copy, these 2 fields work in exactly the same way. You just click here, start typing out your customer name or group name, and then select them and it'll add them to that list. Now the next thing we have here is your email subject, which is exactly what it sounds like. And then lastly is your email content. And now just to point out, you have a full WYSIWYG editor here, so when it comes to writing out your email content, you can do things like adding in links, adding in photos. You have system variables over here, which can be kind of neat. So if I want this to start out with the customer's name, and I was sending this out to a group of customers, I could go into my system variables and I could say customer first name. And that'll fill in with the customer's first name for each customer that it goes out to. And you can see I've got a number of options there. I can add in my own name, phone numbers, things like that. Now the other thing you can do here that's kind of neat is you can add in a template. So if I go up here to Insert and then choose Templates, you can see I've got a template selected here, so I can select from my templates and it gives me just a preview. There's a picture of a cat. Those are always fun. We have a test platform, so there's always some fun things in there. Lead follow-up. So you can see we have some options in here that you can select from for templates, and that would fill in this email content. In fact, we'll just go ahead and click OK. You can see it filled my content in. It has a bunch of those variables set up for me, and just a shortcut that I can use to send out those emails without having to type out the content every time. So there you have it. So the next thing you can do here is, from this functionality, you can add a file attachment too. And we've made a couple of changes there. So if I click on Add File Attachment, and I'll just grab a file at random here. There we go. You can see that it drops in a kind of a card or a block here that has my file information in it. And then the functionality we've added, it used to just put a list here of each of the files I were to attach. But now it puts this card here. I have a download button, so if I attached a file and I wanted to just verify that I attached what I thought I did, I could click this button to download that file and take a look at it to make sure it's the right one. And then also I can click on this X button if I want to just remove it. So there you go. And then when that's all set up, I would just go down here and click Send, and that would send out my email. So we'll cancel that one because I don't want to send out this random email. Now the next option we have here is Add Customer, which is exactly what it sounds like. I can click on Add Customer. I can fill in all the information I know about that customer, and really just name and email. You want to make sure you have at least that, but beyond that, the more you have, the better. Phone numbers. I can actually even put in a transaction from here and attach that to this customer if I want. Postal address information lets me add in that customer's physical address. And if I expand that, you can see I can put that in. I can also put in multiple physical addresses if I want. But the idea is to make this as simple as possible. So if I just have name, a cell phone number, and an email address, for example, I would just type those out, click Save and Close, and I'm done. My customer is added. So all the rest of this information is optional, but good to enter and easy to enter here if you do have that information. Also, let's say that you were adding a customer here and you knew the kind of property that they were interested in. You could fill this information out, and then you could click Save and View Profile, and that'll take me through to that customer's profile page where I can then create like a saved search and a market watch and go through that whole process. And we do have videos that go through that customer profile page in detail and show you all that functionality as well. Now the only other thing of note here is that you can send a welcome email immediately upon adding the customer. So that's kind of a nice just convenience feature there, where I can just put in their information and fire that off and not have to go then to their profile page and send one from there. So just kind of saves me a step. So we'll close that one out. Oh, there we go. Now we're doing better. Now the next piece we have here is the lead performance report. So we'll just take a quick look at this one. If I click on that button, that takes me to my lead performance report. I can select the range that I want to see for this report, but just to give you an idea what the report is, you can see it's just lead statistics. So this is how many active customers I have, how many showing requests I've gotten over the time period that's selected, what my response time has been when it comes to processing leads. You can see my response time is 417 days, so it's not the greatest. But in my defense, I do tend to put a processed lead in here that I can use for demonstration purposes, after all. So this is how you can see just general lead statistics over a time period, and you can see the default time period is specified here. But if I go up, I can change this to just the last 30 days if I want. So I can take a look specifically at that. You can see my time is much better. You can see any amounts that show up green like this means that if the company has set goal amounts for these, that means that I am doing better than whatever that goal amount is. So it's good to keep that in mind. And then also I can compare data over a range here. So I could say in the last 30 days, let's do a comparison. And so it's going to compare the last 30 days to whatever time range I set here. So I could say, let's do, we'll get there, we'll move out. Let's do October 1st to October 30th of 2020. And we're comparing that to what my report range is, which is just the last 30 days. And then I would click on Update. And you can see that it actually gives me a report range, so that's the time frame up here, and a compare range, so this is the second date range I've set, and it compares the two of them, and then just gives me a really a really easy way to determine whether I've done better or worse in my report range versus my comparison range. So it's just a nice, easy way that you can kind of keep an eye on your own performance as far as these things go. And this isn't just your own performance, but also how many requests you've gotten. So just general performance of how many leads have been coming in. And then the last thing you can do here is you can calculate the responses, or basically these times down here, these response times. You can have those take office hours into account. So right now it's looking at a lead came in, it doesn't care when it came in, when did you respond to it. If you consider office hours, then it's looking into whether or not that lead came in during office hours, or basically waiting until office hours start before it starts counting your response time, if it was a lead that came in on off hours. And if I select that, it's going to use the default office hours if any are set for your office, and if they're not, you can actually define the office hours that you want to take into account for this report. And just like the other setting, I would click Update Report, and then that would give me the updated information down here. All right, so we'll head back over to the Customer Center. There we go. So that was our lead performance report. Now the next one we have here is Import Export Customers. This is a larger feature, so I won't go over it in detail. But the long and short of it is, if you want to import a CSV of customers, export a CSV of customers, or delete a previous import, this is how you would do it. So you would just click on that button, click Import Contacts, and run through that process with your CSV to do an import. Click Delete, and it would list out all of the previous imports you've had so that you can remove those if you want, and it'll delete all the contacts from that import. Or you can use Export and export a CSV of all your contacts. And you have some criteria you can export based on, like you could export only customers in a certain group, that kind of thing. So close that one out. And the next thing we have here is Clean Up Customers. So this option allows you to, if you have a lot of customers that you want to kind of remove in bulk, you can use this feature to go through and return any customers that are returnable based on the company's website, company's settings. And what that means is it's returning those to the company, so it's basically unassigning them from you. So if you've decided that they aren't useful to you, they aren't in the market, you're not going to prospect those customers, they're not in your market, so you just want to move them back to the company so they're not assigned to you anymore, you would use that return function. And then if it is a customer that belongs directly to you, like somebody you've imported or somebody you put in manually, and your company is allowing you to go in and delete those, then you can use the delete option on those. But to use this, they'll all be keep by default, so leave the ones you want to keep on keep, and then switch any ones you want to return to the company to return, switch any ones you want to delete to delete, and then click Process, and that'll go through and do all those in bulk. Now it does allow you to do up to 100 at a time. So it's just how many is in this display, so I can change this to 100. It'll show me 100 customers, and I can go through and select those and do them 100 at a time. That way I only have 3 pages instead of 20 or however many that was before. So there you go. That is that feature in a nutshell. So let's go back to the Customer Center. The next one we have in line is Merge Customers, which is exactly what it sounds like. Again, is partially subject to your company settings as far as which customers you can delete and which ones you can keep. So, if the company provided you with a customer, like it came in from the company site and was broadcast to you and you accepted it, you may not be able to merge with that customer because you can't delete that customer. But we'll click on Merge Customers, and you can see it lays out all the different customers here, and I can select who I want to act as the primary, who I want to act as the secondary, and click on merge, and that would then merge that customer or take me through the rest of the merge steps. Now these are kind of similar contacts that the system has found for you. So it did some checking for you to try and find what it believes are potential matches. But then down here, I can merge any two customers, again, based on the company settings. I would just type in a primary customer's name, and it gives me the autocompleter. There we go. So it selected my first one, and then it sees it has another one that it suggests to me, or I could start typing and I would get that autocompleter again. In this case, I'll just select this one and say choose. So there's my two customers. Click merge. Now I decide which field I want to keep from each customer. And then I hit merge contacts, and now they're merged. That's all there is to it. Now if I go back to tools, that takes me back into my customer center. Now the next piece we have here is hot new customers. So these are just customers that have had some recent activity. You can see right now it's filtered by last activity, so it's filtering by new customers, so specifically customers that have been created recently. But I could also filter this down to customers that have recently had a home finder or a saved search email sent to them. Last touched is going to be those that recently have that last touch, or basically the system recently reached out to. Manually created, and then some other options in here. Viewed a home finder, so I could look at only customers that have recently viewed one of those saved search emails. So you can see I can filter this by a variety of ways. And then I can also filter by name. So if I just start typing here, and I'm typing the only customer in here, so but if I just start typing here, it'll filter the list down to only those that match whatever I type into this field. So there we go. And then I have an option here to open the customer in a new window. And what that means is if I were to click on this customer's name, it's going to open that customer's profile page. And you can see it took over my current window to do that. If I had used or had that box checked, it would have opened a new window and opened the customer profile in that new window so that I don't lose where I am on the customer center page, basically. And so we'll head back over to the customer center. See, that was hot new customers. The next piece we have here is customer groups. So this will lay out all of your groups. Now this is all of these blue background groups are the virtual groups. So these are groups that the system has created for you, either because the company's created a virtual group that you can use, or because you just have customers of a certain status. So you can see customers marked as active status. So those are all the customers where my status is set to active. It automatically builds a group for those. And the reason for that is so that if I wanted to send out an email blast to just my closed transaction customers, for example, based on that status, this allows me to do that. And then all marketing customers is essentially everybody that's assigned to you that is capable of receiving email. So anybody that's not inactive is what that comes down to. And then the next ones are active and closed. You can see this one's got a little antenna next to it, so that means it is a pipeline phase group. And then active, this is just a standard group. Also, if the company had created groups on the company side that they were making available to me, so not a virtual group that they have populated, but just a group name, essentially, that I have access to use, those will show up in this list as well. Now the other things I can do here is, like the customer fields, I could type in a group name, and this would filter down to just groups that have that in the name. So active and inactive, match active. Also, if I didn't want this list, if I thought it looked a little cluttered here, I wanted to simplify it. Maybe I don't want to see the pipeline phases, and maybe I don't want to see the virtual groups. I can just uncheck those, and now it's just showing me the regular groups. Now with any of these regular groups, if I wanted to make any changes, I can click over here on Actions, and you can see this is a company group, so I don't have the ability to delete it. However, I can view the people that are in it. I can edit it if I want to add people to it that are assigned to me. And I can click on Labels if I want to print out mailing labels for this group. Now if I find a group that is one that I actually added, sounds very easy. There we go. So customer search group is one that I actually added. You see I have the ability to delete that one, and if I click on edit, I can edit more than I can for a company group. So this one I can now change the name. It doesn't have a color now, so I can give it a color. Include in Pipeline Manager, this is just informational for me because the company will choose which groups are pipeline groups. So I can't choose that one, but I would see whether or not this is a pipeline group based on whether or not that's checked. And then I can also choose how I want to populate it with customers. So I can either go down here and select from my customers to populate this group, or I can use these virtual group rules and I can say every customer that's made a showing request goes in this group. So what this would do is have the system automatically determine which customers go in this group based on whether or not they made a showing request. And that can be very handy for me, because at that point I can say, I could create a showing request group, and then if I want to send an email to everybody who's ever asked me for a showing, then it would be very easy for me to do so. I would just be able to pull up that showing request group in the to field and send out an email to them. So there you go. Once you make any changes here, you just click on Save Group, and that saves all this information. So we will close that guy out. And if I were to add a new group, you're going to see basically the same interface. So if I add a new group, you can see that I give it a name, give it a color, include in pipeline, and choose how I want to populate it. The only difference here is, instead of selecting customers, what I would do is, if I want to add specific customers to it, I would create it and then edit it to add those customers in. But it's possible that I want to create a group and I want it to initially be populated with the members of another group. So if I were to create this and say, I want all the customers that are currently in my closed group to go in this group when I create it, I could check this box. And in this example, it would even make more sense if I selected multiple. So I would say all the customers that are in any of these three groups are going to go into this group initially when I create it. But then that only happens upon creation. So, it's going to fill it in initially, and then I can go back in and edit it if I want to add more customers to it, or remove any of these customers that I added to it when I first built it. So that is the difference here. So this will automatically fill it with anybody now or in the future, or ever has made a showing request, if I were to select showing request here. Whereas this, just on creation, grabs the members of a current group and puts them in here. So there you go. So we'll close that out, and that is the groups interface here in a nutshell. And then the last piece you can do here is, like all of these interfaces, you can choose how many results show per page. So that's what this is. Right now it's 10 per page, but if I wanted to see 25 groups, I can just select 25, and now 25 per page. Now the next piece we have here is customer detailed list. This works pretty similar to the hot new customers list, only you have some more filters up here. And it also shows some more information here. So first off, I can filter this by name. That works the same as above. I can filter by email, which works the same as above except for email address instead of a name. So if I can type today, there we go. So you can see it matches only customers that have that matching email address. So we'll close that out, or remove that, and you can see it filters the rest back in again. I can filter this list just down by any of my customer groups. So when I click on that, it shows me all of my groups here. Then if I select one, it shows me only the customers in that group. Of course I would pick a group that doesn't have any customers in it. There we go. Just having tons of luck with this one. We'll go back to all customers. There we go. So that lets me filter it by group name. I can filter by pipeline phase, so this really amounts to that pipeline group. So if I wanted to see only my customers that are in the suspect pipeline phase, I can filter this down and show just those. I'll switch that back to any phase. And just like the other interface, if I click open in a new window, that just means that when I click on the customer's name to open their profile page, instead of taking over my current window, thereby effectively making me lose my place, it'll open them up in a new window. So we'll uncheck that. And then the additional things I can do here is I can page through all of my page results. If I go down to the bottom, just like the sections above, I can choose how many results I see per page if I want to see more than just the default. And then I can also sort by all the information in these column headings. So if I wanted to see only those that have a market watch set up, if I click on this market watch heading, you can see that it will filter, well, not filter, but sort the list based on whether or not the customer has a market watch, or really how many market watches they have set up. So the first time it changes it to ascending, so I see all the zeros on top. But if I turn it the other way, or click on it a second time, it searches by ascending. So now, or descending rather. It was already ascending. Now it's descending. And you can see that this customer has the most market watches, so they're the one that gets sorted to the top. And I can do the same thing for save searches, save properties, and various other information here. So on down the line, the next piece we have here is the tasks interface. So by default, it's going to show me my overdue and upcoming tasks, but I can change that filter if I only want to see tasks that are coming up, or if I only want to see my completed tasks, which I don't have any completed tasks. Or I can use this if I want to filter only tasks that have a due date within a certain range. So I can filter that out. The other thing I can do is I can change this to a card view or a list view, just depending on which I prefer. and I can create a new task right here from this interface. And when I do create a new task, I can go in here and I can create repeating tasks also, which can be very handy. So to create a new task, I wouldn't have to attach a customer, but if this were related to a customer, like a follow-up call, like it says down here, then I could type in a customer name, just like the rest of the customer interfaces, and you can see the autocompleter comes up. I can select, give a due date for this task, and then let's say I want a follow-up call with them, once a month. So I could switch that. Turn on repeat, and we'll change that to monthly. We'll repeat every 1 month, and we'll say day of the month, so repeat every 1 month on this day of the month, day 25 of the month, and it never ends, so just repeat it forever. I could also limit that by occurrences, or I could tell it just to run up to a certain date. So that is how I would set my task up. So we'll close that one out. Now as far as interacting with the tasks here, the idea is when it's done, I'll just check it off the list, and you can see it grays out. They will go away at the end of the day, but they don't go away immediately, because the idea is what if I click on the wrong one by accident? I want to be able to uncheck that one still. So at the end of the day, they'll go away, though, if I have them checked as completed. Or go away from this upcoming list, and then only exist in the completed list. And then I can go through any of these, and I can also edit or delete any of these tasks if I wanted to change them or make them go away. So there is my task list, and then on down, the next piece I have is calendar. So this shows all of the calendar events that are set up in the system. So this could be synced in with your Google Calendar if you have turned on the Google Calendar sync, or the Office 365 Calendar sync if you have access to those and have any of those things turned on. And then I can also view the full calendar here. And it just brings up this little calendar interface, which isn't working on the test environment, but would have just a standard calendar here. This shows out all the events. Now this also includes events created by the company that I have access to, or that are visible to me. So there you go. That is the Customer Center, along with that new functionality to be able to go in here and reorder this list. Also the functionality in email customers, where we've changed how the attachments work on those. And that is how you can set up this Customer Center to work for you and kind of run your business from here based on the layout that makes the most sense to you. So, as always, thanks a lot for joining me. If you have any questions, concerns, comments, feel free to send an email into support@deltagroup.com or give us a call, and we'll be happy to walk you through whatever functionality you need. Thanks a lot, and I'll see you next week.